Swami Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nittai Gaur Premanandi. Continuing, part 2. This morning, our topic is further expanding on something that we just touched on yesterday, because yesterday was something like an overview of the entire event together. There was mention, just one slide, of Sati's immolation, or she burned herself in fire of concentration, and she's a very intense person. By fixing her mind with intensity, the heat rose so much so that her body burst into flames. And it had to do with her father, Daksa, insulted her husband, Lord Siva. So we heard just the mention, and now we're going to go further into the topic. In general, one of the names of Haridwar is also Ganga Dwar, or the place where the Ganges descends to the plains. That is to say, there's a whole presentation just on the descent of the Ganges. But the Ganges originates beyond this universe. We'll hear that whole description also. Lord Vamana poked his toe through the covering of the universe. And what's on the other side of the covering of the universe is the Karana Ocean. And the Karana Ocean came through that crack and washed his foot. And because of washing his feet, the Ganges has now become sanctified, purified, and purifies all the places where it flows. So, from the upper realm, we'll hear the whole description of how it flows down and down and down and down and down to Atala, one of the 7 lower planetary systems where Kapila Dev was engaged in meditation to free the sons of Sagara from the hellish destination. They became purified just by having the Ganges water wash their ashes. Anyway, so the Ganges descends from the upper planetary regions, from the covering universe, and down and down and down. And when the Ganges comes from the Himalayas to the plains or the foothills of the Himalayas, that's where Haridwar is. And this event that we're going to hear about takes place in that region. The headquarters or the capital of Daksa's kingdom was and is known as Kankal, which isn't in Haridwar, but it's near Haridwar, and it's one of the glories of Haridwar. And it's where the Daksha Yajna occurred. So here's a nice photograph of the place, Kankal, where many, 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 many pilgrims come. This is just on an everyday, this is not a big festival day. People come to take bath in the Ganges at Kankal. Daksha was given the name, or has the name, as one who is expert. Daksha means expert. And he was Prajapati. He produced many, 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 many offspring, thus Prajapati, which was a function on behalf of the personality of Godhead, who brought about the creation, and then after the creation needed to fill up the creation with living entities. And that was one of Daksa's services. He was really good at it. And one of his offspring was Sati. Sati means chaste, literally. Sati means chaste. Later, she was also known as Uma. Many of the devotees know her that way also. Uma. Uma has these different meanings: mother, tranquility, splendor, fame, and night. In case you want to know what the meanings of Uma are. And then in her second birth, she became Parvati, the daughter of Mount Parvat. We're going to meet Mount Parvat personified. Interesting. So this narration, we also touched on this yesterday evening, but in Canto 4, there was a discussion between Vidura, pictured on the right, Grahastha, and Maitreya, Rishi, a renunciate, on the left. And Maitreya was living in a cave, and the cave was in Haridwar along the Ganga. We see the Ganga flowing over to the side. It looked like a very nice ashram. You got a nice spot. And Vidura, who was on pilgrimage, extended pilgrimage, all going from the eastern side of India, going all the way down to the bottom and back up again, and then circling around because he is heading back for Hastinapur. But meanwhile, he ran into Uddhava in Vrindavan, in the forest of Vrindavan. And he had some exchange with Uddhava, and he had some further questions that he wanted to ask Uddhava, but Uddhava deferred. I'm younger. Maitreya is far senior. He's not far away. Go to Rishikesh. Not Rishikesh. Go to Haridwar, and you'll find him there. So that's where he went. And the section of the Bhagavatam is Canto 4, chapters 1 through 7. That's several chapters of this talks between Maitreya and Vidura. And in that discussion, here's some of the topics that they covered because of the questions. That one of the questions was, how is it possible this elevated person, Daksha, had such animosity towards Lord Shiva? That was what inspired this long narration. And then following that, there was a discussion between Lord Shiva and his wife, Sati. Sati quits her body. Lord Shiva's response to Sati's quitting her body. So that's what we're going to be hearing. It spans these 7 chapters. So before we get to Canto 4, those of you that like to understand the context of their narration, let's go back to Canto 3. And Canto 3, the creation of Lord Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, covers these chapters 4 to 7. And then after what Vishnu does comes what Brahma does, Visarga, covering even more chapters. And after the Visarga, then Brahma has a responsibility to fill up the universe he just built. Sarga Visarga. And then the population of the universe. So the first of the production from Lord Brahma was Swayambhuva Manu. And Swayambhuva Manu was given one of the services that he was given. Of course, the laws of Manu were given to him, or he was to deliver them, but he had to help fill up the universe. So we'll see a chart, next slide. Swayambhuva Manu had 3 daughters and 2 sons. And the 3 daughters, Devahuti, Akuti, and Prasuti. 3 daughters. And then 2 sons, Uttanapada and Priyavrata. And a big part of Canto 4 has to do with, the conclusions of Canto 3 has to do with some of these personalities. And you see the source over on the left side, 4th canto, which chapters these topics are discussed. Priyavrata isn't discussed until Canto 5, but Uttanapada is discussed, and his son, his 2 queens, Suniti and Suruchi, and 1 son named Dhruva. So this is 4th canto, the overview of what's in the 4th canto. But on the Prasuti was one of the daughters of Swayambhuva Manu. Prasuti married Daksha. She was given in marriage to Daksha by Swayambhuva Manu. He gave his daughter in marriage to Daksha. And then in this section, Canto 4, Chapter 1 through Chapter 7, is this discussion. I hope you can see the box. Those orange boxes at the bottom is the 3rd one from the left, or in the middle. 4th canto, Chapter 1, starting with text 48, and then going to the end of Chapter 7. That's the story of Daksha, and Daksha became married. One of the wives of Daksha was Sati. So here's the overview of those chapters 1 through 7, with images to depict what's going on over there. So the question was raised by Vidura. What was the deal between Lord Shiva and Daksha? Why was Daksha so perturbed by Lord Shiva? They're both elevated persons. Why this big conflict? So to narrate, Maitreya is describing Swayambhuva Manu and the descendants of Swayambhuva Manu. That's the context. And during the reign of Swayambhuva Manu, one of the forms of the personality of God had appeared. That's Narayan Rishi, which we'll hear a great deal about during this seminar. Narayan Rishi, very important personality. So in Chapter 2, we hear of the offense of Daksha and Lord Shiva. Now, Sati was given in marriage. Daksha gave in marriage. His daughter, Sati, gave his daughter in marriage to Lord Shiva. She was attracted, and they married, shown in Chapter 2. Little drawing there. Now, Lord Shiva has different names. We heard yesterday about different names of the Ganga and different names of Lord Shiva. Shila Vatam Shrestha. Shrestha is the best of the gentle. Shila Vatam Shrestha. Shresthe. Charachara Gurum. He is the spiritual master of the whole world. Very important position. Nirvairam. He is a personality who has no enmity towards anyone, except when Lord Shiva lost his wife, because his wife became so upset with her father, she burned her body in ecstatic trance. Shanta Vigraham, he's always peaceful. Atmaramam, he's self-satisfied. Some other names of Lord Shiva. Here's Vidura, pictured on the right, and he's inquiring from he's inquiring from Maitreya, what was there between Daksha and Lord Shiva that Daksha hated? He's his son-in-law. Why did he hate him so much? So the narration begins. Daksha was having a big yajna, the celebrated Daksha yajna. And many persons were invited. And of those who were invited, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma were chief. Now, Brahma is the father of Daksha, and Lord Shiva is married to the daughter. So Daksha is expecting the son-in-law to respect him with certain etiquettes. So when this yajna was about to begin, Daksha came into the yajna, into the sacrificial arena. Everything was set up. And when he entered, much to his chagrin, Lord Brahma, everyone offered respects because he's Daksha. He's the son of Lord Brahma. He's the host of this big yajna. So everyone except two personalities offered their respect. Even the renunciates, they offered their respect because Daksha is a very important celebrity. So Lord Brahma remained seated, and Lord Shiva also remained seated. Because Shiva is, although he's the son-in-law, something supersedes the son-in-law, that is Lord Shiva's spiritual qualification. Now he could have, but he didn't. And he didn't for a reason, because he knew Daksha was proud. And he wanted to help Daksha with his pride problem. So he remained seated. And Daksha didn't like that. Daksha, in turn, came before Lord Brahma and offered his respects to Lord Brahma, his father. But then he just glanced at Lord Shiva and he began to speak some harsh words, which is in that lower illustration. There's Lord Shiva seated, and he's going to vilify. On the pretext of speaking about good manners and culture of respect, Daksha's envy took the shape of sharp words as he criticized Lord Shiva. You know, the body language tells what's going on here. And here's another BBT painting. Daksha is seated next to Brahma. Brahma and Shiva are side by side in special seats. And Daksha is wailing in criticism of his son-in-law. He lives in filthy places like crematoriums, and his companions are the ghosts and demons, naked like a madman, sometimes laughing and sometimes crying. He smears crematorium ashes all over his body. He does not bathe regularly, and he ornaments his body with a garland of skulls and bones. Yuck. This Shiva is a shameless and proud fellow. He's speaking of himself, but he's speaking about Lord Shiva. Sometimes people that criticize, they're revealing their own condition by that vilification. He married my daughter and thus accepted himself as my subordinate, yet he doesn't offer me due respects. He is impure, unclean, homeless, mad, and the master of ghosts and ignorance. It's finger pointing. Due to his deep-rooted envy, Daksha cursed Shiva. So here's the curse. The demigods are eligible to share in the oblations of sacrifice, but Lord Shiva, who is the lowest of all the demigods, should not have a share. Because, we're not so familiar with how this system works, but when a yajna is being conducted, depending upon the person who's organizing the yajna or the brahmana who's chanting the mantras according to the sankalpa of the organizer, names of devas are indicated, the mantra is chanted, oblations are poured into the fire, and offerings are made to the deva. So he's announcing Lord Shiva is not eligible to receive mantras because all these above reasons. He should not have a share. So having pronounced like that, with all this body language going on right at the very beginning, before the yajna begins, one of the dearmost devoted persons close to Lord Shiva is Nandishvara. This is an interesting illustration. It shows, his with a human body and a bull head. But, normally it's not with a human body, it's with a bull's body. The bull carrier of Lord Shiva. But this is the artist. Nandishvara, devout servant of Lord Shiva, became infuriated at Daksha and counter-cursed Daksha and his Brahmana supporters. Quote, anyone who has accepted Daksha as the most important personality and neglected Lord Shiva because of envy, is less intelligent because of visualizing in duality, will be bereft of transcendental knowledge. Which was already the case. Well, hearing the words of Nandishvara, Brighu, who's Brighu? Brighu is the priest of the Devas, the spiritual master of the Devas. So Brighu became irritated and he spoke strong words to Nandishvara. He became enraged and cursed in retaliation. Let the followers of Shiva become atheists, diverted from scriptural injunctions, become addicted to wine, flesh, and take shelter of unauthorized and heretical views. Brighu. Cursing, counter-cursing, the counter-curses, and it became a big mess. When such cursing and counter-cursing was going on between Lord Shiva's followers and the parties of Daksha and Brighu, Shiva became very morose. He's just quietly listening to all of this. Not saying anything, he left the arena of the sacrifice, followed by his disciples. Now, those disciples look a little different than sometimes we see disciples. He has hobgoblins and all kinds of creatures following behind him, but these are nice fellows following behind him. And he left. And where he went to Kailash, that's his place. In this manner, the tension between the father-in-law and son-in-law, Daksha and Lord Shiva, continued for a considerably long time. Now, as you see, we're already in chapter 3. And remember, the narration is between Maitreya and Vidura. And the discussion is because Vidura asked a question. And the question was, why animosity between Lord Shiva and Daksha? What was going on? And the essence is Daksha was proud. So proud, when someone is prideful, they can do bad things, mean things, hurtful things, and that's what happened. He started vilifying in a public assembly very strongly. He's this and he's that, and he's not entitled to receive his mantra being chanted and oblations in the sacrificial fire. And then Nandi, and then Brigu, and then big mess. So that's the beginning of chapter 3. Now in chapter 3, Lord Shiva has gone back. Sati is in the ashram of Lord Shiva. She hears about her father conducting yet another yajna. And when she hears about it, she wants to participate. Daksha became proud of being the chief Prajapati. Daksha started another sacrifice, neglecting Lord Shiva. Not only neglecting, but it's like he wasn't, not that he wasn't invited, but it was, it's an insult. So there's the big yajna, and everything's about to begin. The sage Maitreya continued, "O Vidura, all the progenitors of the universal population," the progenitors, Prajapatis, because we're still at the stage, the universe that was built by Lord Brahma has to be filled up, and Daksha is very expert at doing that, and there are many, many others, also progenitors of the universal population, thus executed a sacrifice for thousands, plural, of years. For sacrifice is the best way to worship the Supreme Lord Hari, the personality of Godhead. Now this tells us something about the yuga, when this occurred. Because at different yugas, there are 4 different yugas, and there are different processes recommended for each of the yugas. So the process of yajna is particularly for this present yuga. Becoming aware of the festivities, Sati tries to convince Lord Shiva to go to the sacrifice. That's in the upper. So, my dear Lord Shiva, your father-in-law, her father, is now executing great sacrifices, and all the demigods, having been invited by him, are going there. If you so desire, we may also go. Pretty gentle. However, she carries on. My sisters, because she had many sisters, my mother's sisters and their husbands and other affectionate relatives must be assembled there. So if I go, I shall be able to see them. Family stuff. My dear husband, I am very much anxious to go. Lord Shiva doesn't like the idea, but she's been gentle asking, he's going to be gentle in responding. Wise Shiva reasoned with emotional Sati. One can go to a friend's or relative's house, even uninvited, but only if the host is not a fault finder. And Daksha has a problem. The 6 qualities, knowledge, austerity, wealth, beauty, youth, and heritage. So the bhagas of Bhagavan. Well, this is not, he's not a Bhagavan, but opulences. become false in a proud person who cannot see good in others. So she knows her father, but she wants to see her family members, her relatives, etc. My dear young wife, certainly friends and relatives, after mutual greetings, by standing up, welcoming one another, and offering obeisances, but those who are elevated to the transcendental platform, being intelligent, offer such respects to the Supersoul. He's giving an explanation why he didn't stand when his father-in-law came into the assembly. Those who are elevated to the transcendental platform, being intelligent, offer such respects to the Supersoul, who is sitting within the body, not to the person who identifies with the body. He's explaining why he didn't stand when Daksha entered the yajna. I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure Krishna consciousness. You may be the favorite daughter of Daksha, but he will not respect you because of your connection with me, which is true. Therefore, you should not see your father, although he is the giver of your body, because he and his followers are envious of me. Because of his envy, O most worshipable one, he has insulted me with cruel words, although I am innocent. So it's a soft no. And she doesn't take the no as a no. She wants to go. In spite of this instruction, if you decide to go, neglecting my words, the future will not be good for you. You are most respectable, and when you are insulted by your relative, father, this insult will immediately be equal to death. So he's foreseeing the future, and sure enough, that's what happened. Neglected by her father, Sati immolates her body in a fire of yoga meditation. So you see the lotus depiction, the artist little depiction on the number 4 over there, like 3 o'clock. That's Sati igniting her body. So she went. No offerings were prepared for Lord Shiva. She kind of could have figured that one out, but he wasn't invited. Daksha did not even receive his favorite daughter, Sati. Wow. She didn't need to be offered respect, but there she is now speaking strongly to her father. At the very beginning, before the yajna got started, you are ati asadhu tama. You're the topmost person, offender, as you insulted an exalted personality. The dust of Vaishnavas diminishes an offender. Lord Shiva's name, fame, orders, and lotus feet are all glorious. Lord Shiva is not obliged to follow Vedic rules. Not obliged to follow Vedic rules means he's in a transcendental position. So those who are in transcendental position, they may or may not, depending on circumstances and time and place, they may or may not act according to the vidhis, the rules that are governing the elevation of ordinary people. He's not an ordinary person. So the fact that he doesn't observe things that you feel someone must observe, you don't understand his position. Materialists cannot achieve the power of transcendentalists. My body is a source of embarrassment Why? Because my body was provided by you and mother, so she's going to renounce her body. Here's the chapter 4 verse. It is not wonderful for persons who have accepted the transient material body as the self to engage always in deriding great souls. No surprise, you're an offender because of your bodily identification. Such envy on the part of materialistic persons is very good because that is the way they fall down. They are diminished by the dust of the feet of the great personalities. Very strong. She's addressing her father in this big public assembly, even before the yajna begins. Since my body was born from a blasphemer, I will give it up. Meditating on the holy lotus feet of her husband, who is Jagat Guru, Sati became completely cleansed of contaminations, which, parentheses, that's her connection with her father, and quit her body in a blazing fire by meditation on the fiery element. So she's a powerful meditator. She probably chanted good japa better than some of us. And there's Daksa, Sita, and its big seat. Remember, the yajna hasn't even begun yet. And there she goes, in a fire of trance. Chapter 5. Angered by his wife's death, Lord Shiva wasn't there, but he heard about it. He creates a fiery demon, Virabhadra, who destroys the sacrifice and beheads Daksa. So, how did Lord Shiva come to know? Lord Shiva came to know, according to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, and also here in Canto 4, Chapter 5, Narada visited him. Narada visited Lord Shiva and said, guess what? Because Prajapati Daksha insulted Sati, she gave up her body. And Lord Shiva became very angry. When Sati body burned in fire, the demigods chased, they attacked and drove away the soldiers of Daksha. Because Daksha is a king, and he has a capital, and he has soldiers. And the demigods became very upset by his insulting and drove away the Daksha's soldiers. This is a painting that's taken from Brihat Bhagavatamrita, because in Brihat Bhagavatamrita, the same narration as found in the Bhagavatam is depicted. When Lord Shiva heard what happened, he became very angry. And when he became very angry, look out. So he directed the anger towards Daksha. And the way in which the anger was directed towards Daksha was by creating this fiery demon. No, not fiery demon. By creating a Virabhadra that would finish Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, being extremely angry, pressed his lips with his teeth and immediately snatched hair from his head, a strand of hair which blazed like electricity or fire. He stood up at once, laughing like a madman, and dashed the hair to the ground. And when he dashed the hair to the ground, he uttered a mantra, and from that hair that dashed to the ground, Virabhadra appeared. Because you are born from my body, you are the chief of all my associates, therefore kill Daksha and his soldiers at the sacrifice. So that's it. Daksha's as good as finished. And this is a BBT painting. There's Virabhadra with many, many weapons and many, many arms and this huge, gigantic feature. And when he appeared on the scene, everyone became terribly afraid. He attacked directly Daksha and removed his head and ripped his heart out. Pretty intense battle. The yajna he was attempting to bring the yajna to begin, but Virabhadra stopped it. He tore off Bhrigu's mustache, because remember, Bhrigu spoke something very strongly to Lord Shiva's carrier, bull carrier. He plucked out Bhaga's eyes. He knocked out Pusha's teeth. Virabhadra cut off Daksha's head with the wooden device meant for killing the sacrificial animals. Thus, Daksha became a sacrificial animal. And he's all the while roaring, Virabhadra. This, in the center, it shows he's tearing off the mustache of Bhrigu and so many other things. So that's the end of the chapter. Virabhadra finishes Daksha, and Lord Brahma came to hear about this big scene that happened at the capital city of Daksha. So Lord Brahma came and spoke some words to pacify Virabhadra by pacifying Lord Shiva. As the priests and other members of the sacrificial assembly and all the demigods, having been defeated by the soldiers of Lord Shiva and injured by weapons like tridents and swords, they approached Lord Brahma with great fear. Offering him obeisances, they began to speak in detail of all the events which had taken place. They're all bowing their heads, and they got a problem. When you got a problem, you go to Lord Brahma. They had the credibility or capacity to do that. When Brahma heard everything from the demigods and the members who had attended the sacrifice, he replied, "You cannot be happy in executing a sacrifice if you blaspheme a great personality and thereby offend his lotus feet. You cannot have happiness in that way." So, what to do? Lord Brahma then took them with him and left for the abode of Lord Shiva, known as Kailash. And then there's lengthy descriptions of Kailash and the Alaka region where Lord Shiva's abode is. This is depicting they got on airplanes and took off on their way to the abode of Lord Shiva in Kailash. And there they saw Lord Shiva seated in a nice meditation posture. As soon as Lord Brahma, the father of Lord Shiva, came, immediately Shiva stood up and offered him respects by bowing at his feet. And then Brahma is going to instruct him. "O Lord," now this is his son, but he's addressing, "O Lord, Lord Shiva, please spare sinful Daksha. Such people are already killed by providence due to their mean-mindedness, envy, and for causing distress to others by piercing words. They need not be killed again by exalted personalities like you. Let Daksha, who has been appointed in charge of religious sacrifices, get back his life. Please revive others too. Please take your share of sacrifice and let the sacrifice be completed. It's Brahma to his son. We have only one chapter remaining, and then we're done for this morning class. Daksha, who now has the head of a goat, because his head was chopped and a goat's head was given to him in place of his very beautiful, elegant features of Daksha. He has the head of the goat. Pretty embarrassing. Beautiful man, look like a goat. Daksha, who had the head of a goat, pacifies Lord Shiva and finishes the sacrifice. Then Lord Vishnu appears in the sacrificial arena. So we're just covering 7 chapters of this whole event. It has so much relationship with Rishikesh. Well, Haridwar. Because the place is very near Haridwar, Kankal. So here's Brahma seated, Lord Shiva seated, Lord Brahma is standing over there on the right, effulgent Brahma. My dear Father Brahma, I do not mind the offenses created by the demigods, because these demigods are children and less intelligent. I do not take a serious view of their offenses, and I have punished them only in order to right them. Now he wants Daksha being brought back to life, no problem. Since the head of Daksha has already been burned to ashes, he'll have the head of a goat instead. So Lord Shiva agrees to the goat-headed Daksha to let him live, and he then has some conversation in this chapter 7. And there's a lot of, you can see the hobgoblins and the followers of Lord Shiva depicted in the background. And they're very devoted, rightly so, to Lord Shiva. And Daksha is offering his prayers and expressing his deep regret for all that he has done. Lord Shiva forgives him, but he's going to maintain his goat's head. And so the yajna continues. And when the yajna continues, the yajna ultimately, yajna vai Vishnu. Yajna is meant for the satisfaction of Vishnu. And here we are. Vishnu descends at the end of the yajna. And, the personality reciting the mantras and offering oblations is Daksha, But Daksha he's chanting all these mantras with a goat's head. Poor fellow. He was beautiful, and the goats aren't so beautiful. Not like Daksha was. But the consequence of big-time offense, offending a great personality, there's consequences. That's what Lord Shiva said to Sati when she wanted to go. Now, part 2 is not today or this morning, but Sati later took birth again as the daughter of the Parvat mountains. No, that's a whole thing. That mountains are living entities also. And some mountains grow. because they're living entities within the mountain. And this Mount Parvat has a personality. And she became the son of Mount Parvat, or the personality. We'll see some artist illustration of Mount Parvat, or the person from whom Lord Sati took birth and became instead Parvati. Now, one detail, and it's important. This is all fantastic. It's like, if you're going to make up a fairy tale, you have to be really creative fairy tale teller. I remember, as I'm speaking this, as a young boy, one of the things that happened was we had a camp for kids, and there was a devotee. No, it wasn't a devotee. There was the son of the coach for all the sports of that school that I attended, and his son was a fantastic storyteller, and he would just weave a yarn of story after story, and we all couldn't wait till lunchtime, because after lunch he would narrate a story and a continuation from the previous day, and it was like, fiction story. Fantastic fiction story, with all the excitement that comes with fiction stories. Intrigue and battles and this and that. It was all fiction. So this can easily sound to people like it's fiction. But there's many buts. But one of the big buts is, why would Shukadev Goswami, who was a perfectly realized impersonalist, interested in zip, having to do with the material energy, be interested in fiction stories? No such thing. Checkmate. No such thing. So if it's not fiction, what is it? It's history. And it's history that has a purpose. And why narrate? It's what's the consequence of fault finding? What's the consequence of being a prideful person? Pious to the max. And with that piety, he had the fruits of piety. He had beauty, he had wealth, he had wives, he had this, he had that, he had position, respect. He had everything. And therefore, because he had everything and his heart wasn't pure, he was proud. There's this little phrase that I developed over the years. The fruits of piety plus a heart that's impure equals pride. He had the fruits of piety. Major. And his heart was impure. Major. Because of that pride, he then felt it perfectly appropriate to insult Lord Shiva. Because with his hands on his hips, he's my son-in-law. And look at my son-in-law. What does he do? He hangs out with ghosts and hobgoblins, and he smears his body with ashes from a crematorium, and he's weird. He's a lower mode of nature person, and I'm the mode of goodness person. And he's disrespectful to me. So although many people consider him a deva, I consider him unworthy. So, pride. And pride's not good. And one who is proud, sooner or later, in one form or another form, everything is taken from such a person. That which in which they have pride is taken. And the taker is Hari. He takes away. And he also gives. So Lord Vishnu came, and as you see in this nice painting, in one of Daksha's yagyas, and he personally came. No, there isn't a description that ends and they all lived happily ever after. Doesn't say that. Like, I don't know what happened next. But Daksha learned a lesson. Not just like he got spanked. He got more than spanked. He got his head chopped. And then he got another head in place of the head that was chopped, a goat's head. Whew. Pretty severe. But the offending of a great Vaishnava is severe, and there's severe reaction. So what about us? What does it have to do with us? My dear devotees, be very careful. You don't have to think, well, devotee X isn't so elevated, so I can offend them because they're not so elevated. That's not how it works. Reaction is proportionate, yes, but vilification or speaking demeaning words about or to a Vaishnava, there's consequences. Offending a Vaishnava has consequences. Now this is extreme, but that's the message. Don't offend a Vaishnava. Consequences. And consequences can be very severe. And even in this case, Lord Brahma came to Lord Shiva and, give him back his life, please. Virabhadra chopped his head. Give him back another head. Okay, we give him a goat's head. Because the statement was that head that he had has already been burned, so we can't give him back the same head. But because he, Daksha, makes sacrifice of goats, we'll give him a goat's head. And that was the arrangement. And it's not fiction. It's a lesson in, the effects of pride. So don't just become pious and get fruits of piety and enjoy the fruits of piety and become proud. That's a big mistake. The Bhagavatam is teaching in various ways, don't do that. Instead, worship the Supreme Lord and in a humble mood and become completely pure. That's the import. Supposing you say, no, I want material opulence. Consequences. For one whose heart is not pure. Having opulence isn't a problem. It's the heart that's impure is the problem. Having opulence or not having opulence, it's not a problem either way. It's not just like becoming renunciate and your problems go away. Give stuff up. But if the heart's not pure, that's a problem too. We're going to hear some very interesting stories coming up in this whole holiday visit. Starting the next class. The next class is about Lord Shiva again. And we're going to hear how Arjuna undergoes great austerities for a purpose that Vyasadeva wanted him to do, and his brother Yudhisthira wanted him to do. And it was a part of his life that was forecast from the day he was born. It was pronounced by a voice from the sky that Arjuna would have great opulence, particularly weapons from the demigods. And Arjuna didn't have this pride problem. He has austerity, and from that austerity he got opulence, but he never misused the opulence because his heart was pure. So have opulence, don't have opulence. Doesn't matter. A pure heart or not having a pure heart, that's what matters. And that's the Bhagavatam is teaching. And what's the pure heart mean? Personality of Godhead is everything. And in Arjuna's case, how did he know what the personality of Godhead wants? He heard from his brother, who heard from Vyasadeva, who knows what the personality of Godhead wants. He's just acting, so he does amazing things, and he, Arjuna, is going to have combat with Lord Shiva without knowing that it's Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva takes a disguise. And battle, and Arjuna is like so powerful. Anyway, we'll hear some more. Next class, 10 o'clock. See you then. See if there's some discussion. It's now 20 minutes before the hour. We have a little portable microphone. There's a hand up over here.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. So the question is in relation to Daksha insulting Lord Shiva. There was Brigu, who was the guru for the demigods. He was present. And is there any explanation for his speech?
Whose speech?
For Brigu's speech, the way he spoke to Nandi. And also Lord Brahma was present in the assembly. And how do we understand his silence and him not speaking at that assembly?
Neither detail is presented in Mahabharata, nor do I know commentary that explains. So it's a disclaimer. But Brigu, why did Brigu speak the way Brigu spoke? He, Daksha, was a Prajapati. And that's, a very exalted position. And here was, this intense behavior by Daksha, who's supposed to be an exalted personality. And when hearing an exalted personality, not just his master, but an exalted personality, don't remain silent. No, this comes into, why did Brahma remain silent? Don't remain silent. So the speech speaking against Daksha's vilification was appropriate. However, Brigu is not a pure devotee either. Brigu is in a powerful position as the priest of the demigods, but he's not a pure devotee. So he took exception to the words that were spoken to Daksha. And he spoke strongly. Now, it didn't say the same thing. He'll become bereft of transcendental knowledge. That's a department that he has some jurisdiction over, transcendental knowledge. Now, that's why Brigu spoke the way Brigu spoke. Why did Brahma remain silent? There's no explanation that I'm aware of. There may be an explanation. One possible explanation is he understood this behavior, the cursing, counter-cursing, back and forth, was all nonsense. Now, he could have put his foot down and said, "You guys, all of you, stop it. You're nonsense." He could have. So there's a past. So in such a case, Brahma, may have been inspired to remain silent because there's a pastime of the personality of Godhead where normally he would have spoken up, but he remained silent so that a pastime could occur. That's a possible explanation. And from many commentaries, reading those many commentaries, someone who's in elevated position who remains silent is inspired to remain silent by the personality of Godhead for the sake of the pastime being carried forward. So it's a reasonable but not a verified reasonable response of being silent. Inspired by the personality of Godhead to remain silent. Whereas otherwise he would have said something, done something. I mean, after all, Daksa is his son, etc. He could have reprimanded him. Because Siva is also his son. So he could have reprimanded, but he didn't. There's a pastime to be enacted. So that's a reasonable possibility with no verified commentary by our acharyas to that in that direction, on that point.
Thank you, Maharaj. There's a follow-up question. So in like a modern day context, I was just thinking silence means acceptance and silence also means complicity. So if we see something like that in a modern day context, should we speak up or
It depends.
take a stance or?
Depends. You can get up and leave. That's what Lord Shiva did. So it depends on the circumstance. Depends on you and the circumstance. But to just sit and watch, Star Wars and do nothing, that's not okay. Say something or get up and leave.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Next. Yeah.
Krita Lakshana Prabhu online. He says, many times I am not aware of my pride, problem of behavior. How to come to position of purity?
Well, you're asking a Rupa Goswami question. Follow the vidhis and then come to the stage of spontaneous, and so follow the vidhis. You know what the vidhis are, the rules and regulations governing, and take shelter of one who, or those who live their life in that same alignment. That's how.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. So I was just thinking that Lord Shiva did not offer respects to Daksha because he wanted to, because Daksha was proud and he wanted and he wanted him to realize that, or basically just kind of punish or whatever. But then why he just left the assembly and did not punish him at that point? I mean,
because it got way out of hand. Cursing, counter-cursing, counter-cursing the counter-curse, and wild. And then who knows, the rest of the conversation thereafter became like, free-for-all. And different persons taking different sides and, chaos. And he was detached. So if there's some service, okay. And if there isn't some service, like, Vidura left, etc. Some persons decide, there's no service for me. No, it didn't take care of the pride problem, because later the pride problem came back. And so, in a certain circumstance, he did something. He could have done something right then and there. But your question is why he didn't and why he left. He could have said something, done something. It's pastime because he's not an ordinary fellow, a conditioned soul kind of fellow. It's a pastime for our edification. So the flow went the way the flow went.
But one slight clarification. Is Bhragu same as Brahaspati? Because demigod's guru is Brahaspati, right? Brahaspati.
Yeah, I'm saying Bhrigu was their spiritual master. Bhrigu Muni. Yeah, my mistake. It wasn't Brahaspati, it was Bhrigu. And Bhrigu is not the priest of the demigods. But he's, so Mike, thank you for that. I spoke incorrectly. But he's a great personality. And he took exception. And so he spoke the way that he spoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I'm trying to think about how to phrase this question, but anyway, I'll ask it. So sometimes we see some of us, or most of us, are given the service of taking care of others. And there is every possibility and a chance for pride to enter in the hearts. And sometimes it could be genuinely that the person is proud, or if I'm doing a service, I may be proud. And sometimes it's just as a service, we need to be saying something to the other devotees so that they get the appropriate training. So how do we identify and how do we navigate through the situations?
It's two things. It's not that pride may enter. Pride is there. And something may trigger pride, and then pride enters. So, and then the second is how to protect ourselves. It's the mood of service. And there's enormous examples, body of literature, of Vaishnavas that maintain a kind of humility that's astounding. And by hearing the topics of those personalities, etc., one can understand and emulate that kind of humility. In the last 2 days, I've been hearing Srila Prabhupada speaking, this as a for example, I've been hearing Srila Prabhupada speaking on Prahlad being asked by the demigods to approach Lord Nrsingadev and calm him down, because his roaring is too much, and nothing they did worked. So the demigods, headed by Lord Brahma, asked, "You go." And he could, easily could have said, something prideful, but it just went the opposite direction. These persons who have these credentials, they couldn't, and me. So I'm born of a demoniac father, and the son takes on the qualities of father. So I have zip credential. And they want me. Now then, Prahlad gives the answer to his own concern. However, regardless of one's background, if some service is there, and one is requested to do some service, then take the mood of service, and even an unqualified person can speak eloquently. So he provides the answer. But the starting point is humility. The starting point is humility. And so service with humility. And that's the protection against pride. And to what extent? No, there's no limit to the extent. Then Prabhupada gave examples of this one, that one, the other one, Haridas Thakur and Sanatan Goswami, and this one, that one, the other one. And the example of being most qualified, but being most humble. And exalted personalities, so it's the mood of service being preceded by or accompanied by the preliminary element of dainya, or humility. So cultivate in that way, and then you're protected from such tendency, prideful tendency in service. And prideful tendency, having such a service, sometimes it may be necessary for you or someone that's taking care of others to speak strongly. And when speaking strongly, it's a service mood. It's not, you tick me off, so I'm going to raise my voice and let you know who's boss. And then there's this other explanation. This other explanation means there's a statement that says for persons who are so ignorant, the only thing they can understand is a stick. So one has to carry a stick because some people can't understand otherwise. So then it takes intelligence to in the mood of service. The stick may be needed, and otherwise, don't pull out the stick. Even it may be needed because I'm going to be in difficulty. I can't help a person if I'm in difficulty. I have to maintain this position of service.
Thank you.
I see a hand way back. Okay, we'll get you. Go ahead.
Maharaj, last retreat, I heard that one can be proud of his humility also, like how to protect from that.
Oh, come on. Stick. Over here. Give her the microphone. Be cautious. The protection is service. Is that on the altar? It just goes automatically? Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Dandath Guru Maharaj, thank you for the class. When I was hearing the story today, Lord Shiva, we reference him very often as he is a pure Vaishnava.
Yeah.
But Daksha was also following the path of religious principles, a very ardent devotee of Lord Vishnu, and also keeper of all the religious principles.
Yeah.
So he is also a Vaishnava, though he has some flaws and purity that he needs to cleanse. Living in the material world, who do we term as a Vaishnava, and what are the qualities that we would think of when we think of the term Vaishnava?
Well, let's go back. And Lord Shiva is the son-in-law. And it's part of culture. Your wife over here is married to this, or is the son, the wife is the daughter of this fellow. So it's not, he didn't make a big deal about this and that. But he, Lord Shiva, as Sati said, is beyond rules and regulations. Because he, Lord Shiva, said specifically, I see the super soul within, and I'm always offering respect. So that that's the platform. No, he has the option of observing the external etiquette or not. And he, for his own reason, doesn't give a reason. He chose not. he remained seated instead of offering respect when everyone else did. So he could have, but he chose not to be, and he gave his explanation why. So that doesn't address your question. Your question is, in our modern context, where do we pose our confidence? Now, that's a good question, and there are many personalities in our modern context or ISKCON. There are many personalities that have exalted quality, exalted character, and as best we can, the phrase that Prabhupada would use is, in accordance with their position or commensurate with their actual qualification. So who are you to evaluate their commensurate with their qualification? Because we're little people, and what qualification we have to evaluate, hook the guy up, and this one gets at 9, that one gets an 8, that one gets a 6. So better to err on the side of being respectful, but at the same time, don't be foolish. No harm in being respectful, in any case, but commensurate respect. That's takes it to spiritual advancement and knowledge from Super Soul and training, purity. So in any case, we can err on the side of being respectful. But then how to manifest that respect, which is kind of the question in our modern context. What do we do? So there's the four. There's the deity, there's the Vaishnava, and gradations of Vaishnava, Uttama, Madhyama, Kanishta, and then those less advanced show mercy. So we make our discriminations as best we can, according to the intelligence, our training, and the scripture has given us. And you do the best you can. Better to err on the side of respect than the other way, disrespect. You get the last question. You're very enthusiastic. You get the last question. Right here in the middle.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
A little softer.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. I have a curious question, like very similar to Daksha's revival back to life. So Brahma did not try reviving Sati. What happened after that?
You know. She took birth again. And the daughter of Mount Parvat, or the personality of Parvat. So she became Parvati. That's what happened. Now, it doesn't give an explanation. I'm unaware of any explanation that the personality moving from this position to that position. There's no technology description that I'm aware of, but that's what happened. I'm making that comment because sometimes people ask those kinds of questions, like how did that happen? I don't know how that happened, but that's what happened.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. And you have to have a quick breakfast because we're back here at 10 o'clock.